and welcome to the beginning of a 3-day webinar event. What we're doing is, over the last year and a half at ShoesOptional, myself and Kaylin, who's my right-hand person that does amazing work for us, we've kind of been paying attention to what's been going on for our clients. And so what this particular day is about is going to be looking at what does it take to kind of attract the right clients to your business. Over the next 2 days, we're going to look at, once we've identified who these clients are and what we want to do as far as identifying them, then how do we communicate and connect with them in a way that is meaningful for them as well as for us. And then really the third day is really about how do we then get them to finally become part of our client base. How do we convert them from just a contact to a client? And so we'll look at that on day 3. But I'll take one step back and just kind of let you know that over the last, like I said, 6 months to about 18 months, we have been looking and paying attention to what we've seen as some significant challenges within the small business community, mainly that a lot of times people really don't understand who their clients are. And so even before we get in there, we're going to go ahead and take kind of an overview of everything that we're going to look at today. So I want to give you this kind of overview, this outline of where we're going today, so you understand that we actually have an intent and a purpose for what we're going to communicate today. So the first thing we're going to ask, and this will be part of where I will definitely have you unmute and maybe share your camera if you feel up to that. But I want to understand, why are you here today, and why now? We'll talk about that in just a second, but there's got to be a reason that you decided, you know what, out of all the other emails you see in your inbox, something caught your attention, and we want to understand that and help you understand that as well. But we're also going to look at some basic things related to business value. In other words, business is about providing value, and we'll talk about what that means to your customers and your clients as we identify who they are. Another thing is we're going to actually go over this concept of customers are not searching for you the way you search for yourself. So one of the blind spots that a lot of business owners have is that they actually think that their clients are searching for them based on terms and keywords that make sense to you as the business owner, but they have almost zero relevance to the client that's actually looking for your product or service. And then the last couple of things we'll look at is, what do we know about our potential customers? We're going to explore some things there, and then we're going to talk about this is going to be a little bit more of a hands-on thing of what are customer avatars. Some of you may have heard it from an old school metric where they call them buyer personas, right? So those are some terminology that's really marketing speak for basically how do we identify who our customers are. And then we're going to do an example. We'll show you some of the things that we've used internally. And then the free gift that we mentioned in our email, you'll actually have a downloadable, basically a PDF that allows you to go ahead and create your own customer avatars. And it's something that gives you a starting point, especially as you look at 2022, of getting in front of your customers in a way that allows you to have a better intelligence about how you market to those who would ultimately become customers in your business. So with that said, we're going to move on to the next slide here. And we're going to talk about today, why are you here and why now? And so one of the things that, if anybody's been around ShoesOptional much over the last couple of years, one of the things that we love to share with people is it's a book, and there's also a TED Talk. The TED Talk's a little bit more digestible for all of us. TED Talks are 15 minutes. But it's the book called Start With Why. It's by a man named Simon Sinek. And basically what he does, he goes through this TED Talk, and I'm not going to do that today. I'll share the link with you when this webinar is over. But we'll figure out how to go ahead and get that information to you, right? So basically what happens is every organization, every business knows exactly what they do and how they do it. So if you're in a product-based business, if you're in a service-based business, you know everything that you do, and you can articulate that pretty well. You can articulate it based on pricing and value. You can articulate it based on features and benefits, and all of that's good. You need to have that information. But there is a concept called starting with why. And what we're discovering is if you know why you do what you do, then you're going to be able to connect with people that really don't care about your product or service. They just want to do business with you because they believe the same things you believe. It's a non-cognitive connection. And that's where we really encourage people to get an understanding. Buy the book if you want to, called Start With Why, or at least watch the TED Talk video by Simon Sinek called Start With Why. And again, I'll get that in the chat box here in a minute. But that gives us a chance to really understand something different in a way to connect to our potential clients. So one of my beliefs here is that client attraction isn't some mysterious process. It's basically about getting clear on why you are here and why someone needs what you have to offer. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a few minutes. Basically, I've got about 5 minutes, then I'm going to open up a little bit of the ability. You can unmute yourself. You can share your camera if you want. But I'd love to hear, why are you here today and why now? And again, lots of emails go in and out of your inbox, but something must have caught your attention that said, you know what, I think I'm going to show up, and there might be a very specific reason why. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute folks, and then let me know, why are you here today and why now? Is there anybody that'd like to go first?
I will.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, so I'm here today because my boss, James Crow, told me this would be an awesome webinar to be on. I'm just starting with Coastside Media.
Right
and James sees a lot of me that I don't. We are based out of Pacifica, California, 20 minutes from San Francisco, and I've been in this community for a long time, so I know a lot of the business people working through the chamber. So when James met me, he's seen something in me that was of value to him. And I always knew I had something to offer, but I just couldn't get it out there to our business community. And I believe through Coastside Media, I'll be able to do that. So this is going to help me, even with the first bullet point or the first thing that you mentioned. Clients do business not for what I'm going to have to offer, but because they know me. And I've already, I think, achieved that, James, with a couple of the clients. They didn't even question the product. They're like, "Oh, just show me it. Come by and show me." So I'm kind of starting to get that and believe in that. So that's why I'm here today, to learn more, to take it a step further.
Excellent. I appreciate your thoughts on that, and that's a good reason to be here. So, anybody else? Who's next? Got a couple of you on mute. If you want to unmute yourself, chime on in.
This is Veronica. I'm here today because we have a new business, and Kimberly and myself, both of us are actually here. We want to learn more and just find out how to advertise on social media, how to attract the right client through the internet. We really don't have any idea about any of this, so it totally caught my eye, and we want to learn more.
Excellent. Glad you're here, Veronica. It's good to hear your voice.
Hey, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff.
Jeff, can you hear me?
Yeah, go for it, Jim.
Yeah. So for me, I'm always learning from Jeff. Jeff and I have been working together like every day for about 5 years now. And honestly, I think for me, I'm always tapping into Jeff's energy and knowledge, and I think we've formed a really deep partnership through the years. And Carol, thanks, but we're a team. I'm not your boss, but that's okay. But yeah, the whole community sees what I see in you, Carol, and you're going to be, in the next 4 or 5 months, you're going to be so great at this and such a whiz at everything. But yeah, I'm just blessed that you're part of Coastside Media and ShoesOptional and everything that we do together, because we're all a big team and we all learn from each other. We're constantly learning, and it's great. So Jeff, thank you for putting this together.
Excellent. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate you being here, man. Who else? Anybody else want to share any thoughts or why they're here? Why now?
Yeah, this is Haley. I am out of Northwest Arkansas. I work for a small medical practice, and my boss and I just started a new company for home sleep testing. And we saw the emails and thought it'd be great because we are about to do a big launch of our new website and our business in 2022. So just learning as much as possible.
Awesome. Well, Haley, glad you are here. Awesome, fun things ahead. I'm pretty convinced of that.
Yes, thank you so much.
Excellent. All right. It looks like we have a couple more on. We have about another 2 minutes that we can share if anybody else wants to chime in and let us know why you're here today.
Hi, Jeff. This is Barry. I'm here because of a referral that came from a trusted advisor that said I should hear what you have to say because you can help us with our plans of trying to better utilize social media and online marketing to achieve our growth goals.
Excellent. Barry, I'm glad you're here and look forward to sharing as much as we can, and then look forward to connecting a little bit more as well.
Good. Thanks, Jeff.
Excellent. And by the way, I did go ahead and place in the chat room, in the chat window, there is the link to the TED Talk by Simon Sinek, and good read or listen. Doesn't take more than 15 minutes. So when this is all over, feel free to do that, and we will send a summary email that has the free gift, the worksheet that allows you to do some customer avatars, as well as the link to this recording. We are recording these, by the way, for those who weren't able to make it that signed up. They can come back and hit the replay on this, and then they can get access to the same resources. So we'll have a kind of a resource page where all of this lives when everything's over. All right. I'm going to go ahead and go to the next thing here, and we'll keep on going. There's always room for questions, so if you have any questions during this, feel free to go ahead and raise your hand, or there's some virtual tools within Zoom that you can let me know that you have a question, or just chime in anytime. So we'll keep on going here. All right. So I mentioned this, that obviously most of us know this. This is kind of common knowledge about business, right? Business is about providing value. So every business that exists from pretty much the beginning of time, they saw a problem, they saw a need, they saw something that they could provide value in, and they decided, you know what, I'm going to be the one that does that. Now, in a lot of industries are pretty crowded. So I know on here we have some people that are in the real estate industry. That's a pretty competitive market, right? We have some folks here that are part of a brand new product launch. So somebody mentioned that they're getting ready to roll out their website for the next year, and how do we kind of make a big splash that allows people to see the value of the product or service that's being provided. And then there's a lot of other things going on, but what we really need to understand is that really business at the end of the day is simply this. It's about providing a product or service that meets a need, right? At the end of the day, that's what you do, but that's what a business is about. Marketing, and that's kind of what this whole foundation is really about, is a digital marketing process that we believe can help you grow your business, especially as we launch into 2022. But marketing is about finding and connecting with the person who has that need. In other words, you have a product or service that's going to meet a need. Marketing is about figuring out who those people are and getting that right in front of them. And so that's what we're going to take a look at for the rest of our time. So we basically have about a half an hour left. And what we're going to do is we're going to walk through a couple very specific examples. And then we're going to kind of open it up to a Q&A time where we can actually share some ideas. So if you have a specific niche market that you're in, start thinking now about what is the kind of clients that you find yourself working well with, and also maybe some clients that you don't find yourself working well with. One of the things that we're going to define pretty clearly is two-sided. And Jim, I'm laughing because you and I have talked about this over the last year, is there's certain types of clients that are amazing to work with. And those are the ones that we want to grow more and more. But there's some clients at the end of the day, we're like, you know what, they're not really a good fit for us. And that's okay. It's not about like they're a bad person or a bad client. They just don't fit within the framework of what you're trying to accomplish. So we're going to look at that, and it's going to be very clear towards the end of this that we have a definable, definitive way of making sure we're marketing to the right clients. All right, so let's talk about this. This is where we kind of shift gears slightly and we start looking at the reality that your customers may not be searching for you the way you think they are. So one of the things about marketing that I remember early on is somebody shared with me that marketing, especially when you think about print and radio and you think about other types of traditional marketing, whether it's postcards or billboards, the one thing that impressed me is somebody quoted, and I wish I knew the source. It was in a hallway conversation, honestly, but they said that half of all of that type of marketing works. We just don't know what half. So you can buy a billboard and you can get 20 clients, but you may not know that those 20 clients came from a billboard, for example. You may get 100 clients and 20 of them came from the billboard, but they never said, hey, I saw your sign on the side of the road and that's why I decided to call you. So one of the challenges with traditional forms of marketing is there's no metrics behind it, or not necessarily none, but they're not meaningful metrics. In other words, I can't say, look, I saw somebody click on a Facebook ad, a Facebook post, an Instagram post, they showed up at my website, and based on analytics, I saw that they converted and I signed a dollar value to them. And now I have a clear picture of what's happening when I spend money. So if I spend money on Google ads, Facebook ads, or any of those things, and it comes into my website, I want to be able to track that down to the penny if I need to. Some of us don't care. Some of us have bigger buckets to work with. So as long as we're within several $100s, we're happy. But some of us are watching those pennies and we're like, hey, I want to know where everything goes. So metrics and analytics can tell you all of that. We're going to get into that a little bit when we talk about conversion strategy on Thursday. But just understand that part of why we're having this dialogue right now is we want to understand who your customers are, where they're at, and we want to get in front of them and then measure what happens when we put your product or service in front of them. So let's look at that, right? So the number one challenge, in my opinion, is this. It's not that clients don't know necessarily that you exist. It's that as a business owner, we think about our business in certain ways. And sometimes we get, especially if we've been in business for any length of time, we kind of get pigeonholed into thinking a certain way about our business. And unfortunately, that can cost us customers because we're not thinking like our customers might be thinking. So if I'm in real estate, then I might think, okay, here's a bunch of things that that everybody does in the real estate world. And some of those are pretty effective, but there may be some things that are kind of unique or niche, especially in certain communities and certain zip codes that might be interesting to explore and try some things out, especially when it comes to ways to measure that we can say, hey, look, we have a better way of understanding what those customers are doing in that market. So again, the number one challenge is that not everybody thinks about their business the way you do. And so your customers, they're searching right now. I guarantee you today, you have people on Facebook, Instagram, Google, and other platforms searching for the exact product or service that you have. The surprising part, and we'll show you some tools a little bit later on how do we do research in a way that gives us keyword access, gives us thought patterns, phrases, things that your customers are using that you may not even be aware of. So we'll look at that. That's really actually our content strategy for tomorrow. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But just understand that that's part of this overall process of understanding what your customers think. So let's talk about customers. What do we potentially know, or what do we know about our potential customers? So think about it right now. All of you that are attending today, think about the customers that you know of right now that are current clients of yours. How did they find you? Do you know that question, right? In other words, have you done any type of customer market or customer focused research to understand what your customers are looking for and whether or not you need to maybe shift or pivot in your business in a way that allows you to meet those needs more effectively? Right. So my recommendation here is that it's time to spend some time, right, asking your customers who they are and what they want. And the good news is this: there are some amazing simple tools out there that don't cost you anything. So part of what we'll do is we'll share some ideas of things that we've done, but we'll share how you can get what we call customer knowledge without spending a dime. The only cost is your time. And so I understand that time is important, and time does cost things, and time is money, as the old adage goes. But the reality is you don't have to spend a ton of money to understand your customer. There's some quick ways with existing customers and even potential customers where you can do either surveys, you can do, if anybody has a Gmail account and is able to use Google, either Google Workspace or Google Docs, they have forms that you can quickly create, and you can get all kinds of data that comes in a spreadsheet format, and you can crunch numbers and you can look at stuff, and you can ask questions that will allow people to quickly tell you a little bit more about what they're looking for. Now, some of you that are actually on this webinar, that's exactly what you did for us. We sent out back right around the end of summer, we actually sent out a survey, and I think we had about anywhere from 20 to 50 people that actually filled that out and gave us some really good feedback on what they saw as the number one issue. And so when we got all that data, we said, you know what? We now have an understanding that really these three things that we're talking about today, tomorrow, and Thursday, these are the three things that are top of mind to everybody. Now, they relate to a bigger thing that we're putting together, and we'll share that more with you on Thursday, but we actually have a digital marketing roadmap that addresses a lot of these things on a high level, and there's some deep dives, and there's almost a digital marketing mastery process that we put together, and we'll share more about that coming up. So with that said, is the number one issue that came out of our survey when we actually did a little bit of customer research, when we reached out to you as you know, either potential customers or previous customers or somebody that we've known in the industry, you told us, hey, the number one problem is getting the right client to connect with my product or service so that I can have a business that grows and sustains year over year in a way that allows me to provide for my family, for example, or to provide things that you want to do as a business owner. So one of the things that we recommend, and this is just kind of an option here, is there are free services out there like some of the Google products. I know that, you know, Microsoft has some similar products as well. There are things like Survey, I think it's SurveyMonkey, that you can use that's free, where you can literally set up an account, send it out to a half a dozen people, 50 people, 100 people, whatever it is, and get feedback about your industry and get some really good knowledge and use that to then look at what you're already offering, whether it's a product or service. All right, I'm going to take a quick pause and just see if there's any questions, any thoughts, any things that you want to know so far, and if not, we'll just keep on moving. All right. So we'll go to the next thing here. And so this is really this is the meat of why you're here today. So we've got about a little over 15, 20, almost 20 minutes. And we're gonna look at some examples of what we've done internally here at ShoesOptional, but we're gonna show you the power of what we call creating customer avatars or buyer personas, right? So one of the things that we highly recommend, this is actually a really good exercise because it really gives you a picture of who your ideal customers are and also who your, like, not only your primary customer, but also customers that you may not want to do business with. So we're going to look at some of that here shortly. But here's the thing, the more detail you can uncover about your potential customer, the more you can meet them where they are. In other words, we want to give them a name, and we want to use like personality. And the more we do that, it becomes a huge win for your business because you actually can almost visualize who they are. And the more you kind of get wrapped around who your potential ideal customer is, the more likely you are to actually send out notices and product and announcements or buy Google ads or Facebook posts or Instagram posts. They're going to be more meaningful because they truly are going to connect in a way that allows you to kind of get inside their head. So we're going to look at that. Let me give you an example of one of what we've created as a customer avatar, right? So this is going to be an example of what we've done internally, but it actually has some meat behind it. And again, this is all going to be recorded. So if you need to refer to this later, feel free once the recording's processed. All right. So here's a couple ShoesOptional this is actually one Shoes Optional avatar that we've put together. We have probably about 4 or 5 that we've identified over the years, and we're just going to take a look at one specifically. So Haley, you'll know who this person is when I get to the next screen. So this is somebody you're familiar with. All right, so here's kind of the breakdown, right? So we've looked at when people need digital marketing services, whether it's website help, Google ads, Facebook ads, writing blogs, social media, any of those types of services that we offer, we realize they really fall into 2 big buckets. One is that they're experts in marketing. They understand the importance of it. They know a lot, but they're just busy. At the end of the day, they wake up and they're like, I've got 100 hours worth of stuff to cram into a 40-hour work week, and I'm not sure how it's all going to get done. So we refer to these as kind of the expert busy bee who, if they had another 20 hours available in their schedule during the week, they would knock this stuff out left and right, and they would be able to do an amazing job producing content and getting in front of their customers and all of that. The other side is, and sorry for the misspelling there, but the novice busy bee is somebody who's maybe a little unfamiliar with marketing. They've heard certain concepts, and some of it may go over our heads, but the same thing is there's also a busyness that happens where most of us at the end of the day, we're not necessarily overworked, but man, we have a lot going on, right? Life happens regardless of whether we are running a business or working in a business. It's all going to be there. So one of the things that we've done is just kind of look at a breakdown is that most of the people we work with up to this point are extremely busy. We've never really found somebody that just sits around and goes, hey, Jeff, I've got like 5-10 hours a week that I'm not doing anything. Show me what I can do on my website or my business, and I'll get started on it. We've never had a customer or client do that yet. So let me give you a summary of some of the audiences that we've worked with, and we'll show you a little bit about the more specifics of this. But in general, what we've discovered is that our audience is made up of business owners and nonprofits. And what we do is we are focusing on some specific clients that work best, and the ones that will work best with what we call our roadmap process. The roadmap is going to be something we'll introduce you a little bit more to on day 3, and it just gives you a bigger understanding of how all of these things work together. We'll show you that roadmap. We'll explain a little bit of the detail of it, and we'll kind of uncover that on Thursday, like I mentioned. But we've worked with medical and dental experts and people in the medical dental field, residential services, industrial services. We actually have some clients down in Texas that are an industrial service provider. They do all kinds of stuff. We have some people in the construction industry. We do a lot of work with nonprofits and ministries. We do a ton of stuff. Not a ton, but we do have some legal and financial and insurance clients that we work with. And then one of the areas that actually Kaylin who's on this with us, she works with me. We're actually interested in working with some more of the agriculture and livestock community, because there's some really cool people out there that are within that industry. So if you know anybody that needs help in the agriculture or livestock world, let us know. We would love to reach out to them and just say, hey, we've got some things that we'd love to help you with in that. All right, so let's take a look at 2 big thought processes that happen for us. One of them is this: we do marketing for people who think differently. And so that's one of our niche markets. And part of that is probably because of my own background. One of the things you may or may not know about me, but as sort of the founder and creator of Shoes Optional, I'm somebody that comes out of a very, very interesting world. My formal education is a biblical studies degree. And yeah, I did some youth ministry and I did some Bible studies and some things like that early on in my 20s. But then as I kind of grew in some things, I've always been really fascinated with technology and marketing, and all of that kind of came together later. But the interesting part is I'm a highly technical person, and I'm also highly creative. And so part of why we kind of do things a little bit differently here at Shoes Optional is it's actually by design, and part of it's because of how my brain works. So one of the things that I have been gifted with is some of you even on this may have the same thing, but I have ADD, or some people use the ADHD moniker on that. But what it allows me to do is actually some fun stuff. I actually can be very creative at times, and I can be very technical at times. Bless Kaylin, she gets to work with me and kind of keep me in check most of the time. So that's always a fun process. But part of why we are doing things differently is we are marketing to people who think differently. So one of the features of our business is we work well with businesses that have a unique approach to their industry. So some of you may be in the real estate industry, you may be in other industries that you just you're approaching it from a different way. Like we'll share this with you when we get into the next slide. But one of the ones here is Dr. Bolding. He's actually just an amazingly gifted visionary when it comes to the dental side of the world. And he looks at things like TMJ, and he looks at sleep apnea, and he looks at a lot of other things, not just as, hey, here's a quick fix, here's a CPAP machine, good luck, hope things work out. He actually looks at the symptoms behind it, and he really gets to understand the patient, and he really, he brings a lot of compassion and all of those things in place. And as he does that, he's able to approach that problem slightly different in a way that can possibly offer permanent solutions that may involve surgery, some may not, but he does some amazing things that way. And he's actually kind of a leader in his field. And it's very fascinating to me to work with him in how he does things, because he does think differently than the average dental professional, right? We have another client out here called Even Air Solutions, and when he looks at heating and air, he's not just your standard HVAC kind of guy who's going to fix the coils and do all that stuff. He actually wants to look at the indoor air quality of your home. He wants to understand, do you have hot spots and warm spots? Are you getting the right ventilation in the right spots? And are you breathing air that's clean and healthy for you in your home? So he looks at it more than just fixing a unit. He wants to make sure your life is experiencing better health overall, right? So that's one of our avatars, and that's one of the ways that we approach that. The other thing is we do a lot of marketing for people who care about people. One of the things we've discovered over the years is that we work really well with clients that want to make a difference in the lives of other people. So they want to take care of their customers. Now, not every business owner, and there's zero judgment on this, but not every business owner really wants to provide excellent customer service. They just have products, and the more products they can push out, the more profits are there. And there's not a lot of customer compassion or customer service. We tend to have a lot of our clients that really make a difference and go above and beyond with the customers that they serve. So that's unique to us a little bit. I know there's other agencies that do similar things that way, but that's kind of how we approach marketing. And so when we do that, we actually get down to the next slide here, which is like, how do we work with somebody like a Dr. Bolding, and then how do we, in our demonstrations and sales talks, how do we get into his headspace, and how do we offer things that are going to work within that? So, one of the things is that our roadmap, one of the reasons why we even developed the roadmap in the first place is it's sort of independent of the industry or niche that you might be in. It actually works well across any industry, and it actually provides a framework that if you are doing these things in a concerted, focused effort, you're going to actually see success in your industry. So one of the things that we, when we worked with Dr. Bolding, is we started looking at campaigns that communicate that he does things differently. And that for us, we actually want to communicate that we do more than just websites. When Dr. Bolding first came and started doing work with us, he actually predominantly, we just did his website stuff. And now over the last year and a half, we've started to do a lot more marketing. We actually manage all of his blogs and all of his social media stuff at the moment. And we've really enjoyed being able to take that burden off of his team and be able to do it very, very well. And we'll, over time, maybe tomorrow night when we do the content side of things, we'll actually look at some of the examples of posts and things that we've done and show you some of the work we've done with Dr. Bolding. Other things, when you're looking at customer avatars, one of the things is you want to kind of ask yourself, how do we sell to somebody in that industry? How do we demonstrate the knowledge or expertise you have with a product or service? So all of that's going to be things that you want to do when it comes to looking at your actual customer avatars. All right, so we've got less than 10 minutes. We've got about a little over 8 minutes. And so this is what I want to bring forward next. I want to share with you what our customer avatar sheet looks like. And I want to get you starting to think in those terms. And then we're going to open it up for a little bit of dialogue as well. So I want to share that document with you. And that is right here. And so here's what this will be provided for you at the end of this webinar. We'll send an email link to it and where you can download this. But this is basically how do you attract clients, right? So we just went through the understanding of that. We went through understanding that they think differently. They're going to be looking and searching for you in a way that may not relate to you. But then we want to identify them. The more we understand who those clients are, the more we're actually going to be able to do some interesting things. So here's what our client avatar worksheet does for you. And these are some fun things. So remember early on, I shared with you the link to the Start With Why video. I want you to work on your why statement. The more clear your why statement is, the better you're going to be able to articulate everything you do about your business. And so in the video, he talks about Apple as being one of the organizations that probably has one of the clearest why statements that's available. And if you've been watching any of the business things this week, Apple is either, I didn't know if it made it over the edge yesterday or not. It may still be right at the cusp. They are set to become the first $3 trillion company basically in the world, as far as I understand it. So there's something that Apple has done over and over and over, that they are now basically just the largest company when it comes to the amount of revenue and the value of that company. So they're a $3 trillion, not billion, but $trillion company. And the reason why is they've upset multiple industries. And so what Simon Sinek says in his Start With Why video is he talks about that their why statement would go something like this. In everything they do, they believe in challenging the status quo. And they do this by offering products that are beautifully designed, that are easy to use, and they have a long longevity to them. Like they last a long time. And so you look at what they've done. They've upset the record industry. You can buy one song instead of an entire CD. Most smartphones are based on technology that was developed by Apple and the whole experience with the iPhone. And there's other things that they've completely revolutionized. So in your industry right now, I want you to kind of think about why you do what you do. Watch the TED Talk video when this is over, and come back and on your avatar sheet, write down your why statement as clearly as you understand it. What I would love to do, and if you're able to make the other two webinars, we may take a few minutes and see if anybody has their why statement. I'd love to have you read it to us. It would be awesome to hear and we can do some feedback together as a group and maybe share that with you if you want. So keep that with you for tomorrow. But here are some questions to ask, right? Who is your ideal customer? And so I want you to write down who you feel your ideal customer is. We're not identifying necessarily their characteristics yet. We're going to do that on the next page. But who is your ideal customer? Think about that. Write that down. Put it in place. Keep that in front of mind. And then one of the things that you're going to start understanding as we begin to identify who your customers are is, what are their goals and dreams? Like, what's going on in their dream world? Like, if your customer could have everything solved in their life right now, what would that look like? Now, you may not be able to solve all of those problems. You may not be able to help them reach every one of their goals, but you may have a product or service that puts them one step closer to the dreams and goals and aspirations that they're trying to accomplish in their own life, right? The other thing you want to kind of consider as you're thinking about how to market and how to get in front of them, and tomorrow we'll talk about content strategies related to this, but what are their objections? What's going on? What are their misunderstandings? What do they not understand about your product or service that you need to help correct? Or what objections might you need to overcome that they, right now, in their head, when they think about your product or service, they're like, it's too expensive, or maybe it's too whatever. It's too hard to figure out. It's too complicated. If you have any of those objections, figure out how to overcome those. Write them down. Write down what you think their objections would be. The other thing is, how do they make decisions? So we want to understand, how do your customers make current decisions? Because that actually is going to tell you, how do you put something in front of them that's going to take them to the next level with you. Two other questions. Why would they choose your competitor over you? In other words, if you have a competitor that offers a similar product or service, why would they go to your competitor versus you? And then the other flip side of that is, why would they choose you over your competitor? And then this is the last page, and then we'll open it up for a few quick questions. Is, just like we just said earlier, it's also important to identify who is the customer that you don't want. So if you have customers that are time drains, they take up a lot of extra time, and they even take up an emotional space that you don't want to really spend a lot of time in. That's okay. There's no judgment on that, but just think about the clients that you don't want to work with, so that we can also make sure that if you do run a Google ad campaign or Facebook campaign or social media campaign, that you're actually not getting in front of those types of clients. We don't want to waste money or time there if it's not going to be of value, right? And so the other thing we start to do is we start to give them a name and an age. So maybe some of your clients, your ideal client might fit, if you run a business that does, again, I'll use the real estate, we might call it Real Estate Ralph. That might be the client's name. So we kind of give a little bit of your product or service in conjunction with who they are. We give them maybe an age range. Maybe we go, hey, in the real estate world, the ideal client is probably maybe in their, mid to late 30s, and maybe up to about 50 or 55, and they have a business, they're successful, whatever it is. We want to give them some of those demographics. We want to write down some key characteristics of who that person is, and then start thinking about what value and what are they currently talking about, especially as it relates to 2022. There's people having discussions right now that in 2022, you might be able to be right in front of them and help them solve that problem. And the last couple things here, I want you to think about, what is the most profitable product or service that you offer? One of the problems with business is that often we have a product or service, but we don't realize which one is the most profitable. So say if you have 10 products and you have 2 that have a really small profit margin, but you're selling a lot of those, that's good, but it's taking you more to sell that product than it might be to sell 3 other products that have a higher profit margin. So think about those details. And then, why would they purchase this product or service from you today? And then ultimately, what benefit would they receive? So that kind of in and of itself, this will be downloadable for you guys. And what's happening is, again, we want to have you join us for the next webinar, which is, again, it's going to start at 4:00 tomorrow. But before we end today, what I'd love to do is just go ahead and stop the screen share and just offer some time. If you need to jump off, we respect your time. If you have specific questions, this is a good time you can unmute yourself, and I'm here to bounce any ideas you have or anything. All right.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, there you go.
Hey, one thing I wanted to mention to you, kind of back up on a couple things you said, with clients and stuff and people you want to work with. I had a conversation with a client the other day, and people say they want to do marketing, and that's great, but there's a cost to it too. And, I always tell people that, if you're not serious about marketing, you got to have some kind of budget set aside for your marketing. It's not, and I had a conversation with a potential client yesterday about that. And they want to do all kinds of marketing online, blah, blah, blah. Well, I said, it's going to cost you a little bit, because nothing's for free. Solutions cost money. And then she was like, I can't afford that. Well, okay, that's great. So always, you don't even have to mention budget. Just say, hey, if you're serious about marketing, set some money aside. And I think that's really important. And I always tell businesses, that 50% of your ad dollars are working, the other 50 aren't. We've heard that for years. And I always, when you think about it as a business owner, I always say, don't focus on the business that you potentially can get necessarily, but focus on the business that you're losing, that the potential of the loss that you are facing. And then that's when you start thinking, wow, that's when you can really uncover a lot, like you say, go deeper into the why and the how and all that. Is most businesses never really focus on the potential revenue loss because they're not doing marketing the right way. If you're doing the right way, then you're going to prevent it's businesses are, especially after COVID, businesses now are in or should have the frame of mind of loss prevention. And businesses before COVID were all about success and drive it. Now it's about loss prevention. Who's behind you? Who's going to eat you for lunch? And how much business can you lose to that? And that's good. You're about shoring up at that. And to me, it's really important.
And I think you're right. And it's interesting, Jim, because one of the things that I've seen recently is that one of the marketing concepts is right now, if I spend money on Google ads, Facebook ads, ad campaigns, and social media campaigns, I'm going to get in front of my current target, but I'm only going to probably attract and convert maybe 8 to 10% of that market.
Exactly.
The future, meaning within the next probably 3 to 6 months, maybe 6 to 8 months, there's a greater than 80 to 90% of my client market that is going to be wanting my product or service. And I need to start paying attention to that, because that's a huge challenge. Is most businesses, like anybody, it's like, hey, we've got to generate revenue to keep the lights on. So there's the immediate cash flow issue, but then without a long-term strategy, you're absolutely right. If you just go after what's right in front of you and you don't plan for the future, then you're going to get to a point where you miss, that opportunity cost, right? The opportunity cost is where you don't take advantage of something now that pays off within the next 3 to 6 months. And you put the work in, the effort in now, and all of a sudden 3 to 6 months from now, you're generating revenue and you're like, where did this come from? Well, 3 months ago I did XYZ and now it's paying off. So you're absolutely right. That opportunity cost is important. And going back to your first, thing about spending money on marketing, you're absolutely right. It's a cost, and there's a cost associated with it, but there's also a value. And I think the hardest part of any sales process for any client, any business, any product, any service is, how do you communicate the value enough to where the money doesn't become the issue?
Exactly.
Yep. And obviously there's sometimes when people just simply don't have the money, and that's okay. But then there may be some other solutions on, like, how do we help them get the money? Mm-hmm. So in our marketing roadmap, that's one of the things that we're trying to do, is work with clients to identify, if we do something today and it generates 10% more this month than you earned last month, or it generates 20% more over the next couple months, what is that going to mean to your business? So let's look at that and let's market those products or services that are going to give you revenue, that then it's going to be easier to spend more money later, because you're actually doing well now. You're actually making money now, and it's allowing you to take some of that revenue and put it back into the process. And the more you grow in that, then ultimately the more you'll have available 3-6 months from now to spend more and do more at the same time.
Yep.
What other thoughts or questions? Anybody? Okay. Looks like we are, there are no other questions. In the chat box, you do have that link for the TED Talk. What I will be doing is, at the end of this recording, when it processes and I'll upload it to YouTube, I will send out an email that has everything we've talked about. It'll have the attachment of the worksheet for you. We'll also we're going to be building out an area of our Shoes Optional website that has all of these resources. They'll have replays of these videos as well. And that way, if you ever have anybody that's kind of challenged with trying to attract the right customers, refer them over and we can help them out. So we'll go from there. But if there's no other questions, thank you guys for your time today. I appreciate it. I know everybody's got busy schedules, and hopefully you'll be able to join us tomorrow when we talk a little bit more on the next part, is how do we communicate with these clients that we're identifying. Thank you guys for the time, and we'll catch up tomorrow.